identify with like new beginnings, starting over again, and how fortunate we are, and then it becomes like a gratitude and a sense of pride towards the nationality of what that's supposed to mean, saying you're a Canadian. But to say you're a Canadian means that you participated in one of the biggest genocides of humanity.
Yes.
And it's an ongoing genocide. The Black Nation, the Red Nation, the Yellow Nation, the White Nation, each have like a responsibility of an element. And each of us are disconnected from our element right now.
And then here we have you putting the elements back together.
This is the original Six Nations peace treaty.
Yeah, it is. It's the Six Nations peace treaty on our wall. I'm so grateful for this. Listen, more later, of course. Welcome back, City Place residents, and I'm sitting with artist and Anishinaabe. Is that how I say it?
Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe artist. But I think I asked you earlier when I asked you music over other art forms, and you said you began with the powwow.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Nipissing First Nation, which is Northeast Ontario, and just grew up in a very traditional environment, as traditional as it can be on a reserve. And before any introduction to Western culture, I grew up with the powwow ceremony, and within that ceremony, it kind of creates an environment for everyone in the community to gather and share their art forms. So I just grew up surrounded by people that are very creative, learning how to not be wasteful and just be very useful of all of their materials.
Also, I was struck in looking this up that the social structure, although with the treaties the British tried to, and the French is before them, tried to impose a hierarchy, your view is more of a real group equality, like everyone has an equal respect and a say.
Absolutely, yeah, no, we're from a matriarch culture, so it's based on everyone having an investment in the community's goal, and no matter how big or how small you contribute to that circle, it's equally appreciated and respected and valued. Like everyone, there's no one person above the other.
Right, there's no chief.
There is no real, chief is actually like
that's wrong.
It's a military term,
yeah.
Right? And a lot of the terminology from the military way of like identifying nationality or nations and having there be one representative for everyone. It's really foreign to like our culture. So like whenever we were forced to like engage in those kind of communications, like we would pick somebody, but it was meant to be temporary. It was meant to be for that moment because they were the most fitting at that time.
Exactly.
But nowadays people tend to take it as more of a political position and a government position. But there's a saying I grew up with. It's no head above feet. In the center we meet.
No head
above feet.
Above feet.
In the center we meet.
In the center we meet.
Yeah. So it's like in order for us to move as a body, we have to come together. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of body parts.
I'm a retired professor now, but my area was contemporary leadership. And the view that I took is very similar to the one you're expressing, which is followers don't do followership. They're part and parcel of the leadership process. And so everyone is influencing one another, and the one who leads is the one who at that moment the others will follow, but they change places. It's a mutual respect and
absolutely
mutual authority. Q-Rock, you grew up in Nipissing or
yes.
New York or Toronto? Which is home?
I was born in Nipissing. Grew up my younger years and young teenage years in New York in the Bronx. Moved to Toronto in 1997 when I was 17. And I've been here permanently since then. But Toronto's more of like my takeoff spot. Like I work around the world. Toronto has an international airport where I can fly directly into any country, any major city, and it's really convenient for that. So I've made Toronto my home base.
But as a rapper, you have an international following.
Yes, Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm kind of like I'm part of like a global underground hip hop community, and my roots are from the b-boy scene, like the breaking scene in hip hop, which is like essentially the group of artists that really fought to keep the essence of its original form, hip hop's original form, the four elements being embodied into one person, not being separated into groups. It's like there's DJs over there, there's MCs over there. In my era and the people that I was raised from, these are the pioneers that created this art form. You're supposed to do it all. You're meant to do them all because each one actually helps you with the other. For a good example, right now I'm using aerosol, and on that piece I did with the turtle, that's like technically called graffiti or writing. Like, you know, if you're a writer or a bomber, that would be the terminology that we would use. But when we're explaining it to people that are not like involved in our art, in our culture, then I would say, well, it's graffiti. And when I dance, when I'm a b-boy, when I'm breaking, I'm doing stuff with my body that is technically considered to be possibly one of the most hardest dance forms of all time. And what we're supposed to do is like use this influence in our dance with every other art form. So when I'm doing graffiti, I'm making my letters dance.
That's right.
When I'm DJing, I'm making the crowd dance. And I know what beats that they're gonna make them hype. I know it can calm them down. I can read the crowd. When I'm rapping, it's the same thing.
And when you're teaching art or painting or graffiti painting to other young artists, you teach them to see the letters as dancing.
Yes, yeah, no, that's the way I was taught. That was taught to me by this guy named Popmaster Fable, who's also writes Pazer. He's the original TC5 member from the Bronx, historian of hip hop culture and New York street culture, and he's been a big brother to me since I was coming up in New York as a young kid, and he's always been there as a mentor for me and my whole crew, Ready to Rock, and also like my influences too from Zulu Nation and Zulu Kings. He was a big influence on that with me, helped me a lot, helped out the whole crew, you know, just as a mentor, as a leader.
Didn't you include some sample of your father in one of your recordings?
Almost all my music.
Really?
Yeah, my dad's passed away now, but when he was alive, he was a medicine man, and
he was also in the National Film Board film of The Spirit Within.
Yes, yeah, he was one of the elders in that film. There were like several elders that went against the grain and wanted to bring medicine into the jails, into the penitentiaries, to the native inmates. And my father was actually like shone upon for doing that because a lot of the people didn't believe that they deserved that type of medicine for the crimes that they committed. But my father actually went 25 years in the pen, and he turned his life around. And when he got out,
25 years.
Yeah, he did 25 years in Kingston Penitentiary. Back then, it was a real penitentiary. It was, you know, the cells were cold. You know, like the people were dying like all the time in there. He was lucky to make it out. And when he went out, it took him a while. It took him about, I would say, almost 20 years to really find his new role in society. And he then just went with other elders to go into the penitentiary to fill that void in a time when the government was finally opening up to our ceremonies and us as a legitimate culture, us as a legitimate spirituality. So like, it was a good timing, and like, so he went across Canada to all the penitentiaries, and he introduced the sweat lodge, he introduced smudging, the whole culture from very beginning, like how you would learn it from a child, how you would teach your child. Because a lot of the inmates, they had no connection to their culture whatsoever.
Well, that's what your ancestors seem to be doing, is communicating all of this guidance on a lifestyle, on a way to live. That was, it seems, to how to use the past to shed light on the future and see where we're going.
There's that thing I was telling you about, that one tool that we use called the medicine wheel. And in the medicine wheel, everyone has like every culture has a role and a responsibility in their culture. So like the role and responsibility of the First Nations, the Red Nation, that's all the indigenous people of North America. Our role and responsibility is to reconnect everyone to the earth, or to help people to see, like, you know, just the interconnectedness of everything, and
respect for one another.
Respect for one another, but like also like understanding how all things are sacred, and like learning how everything is connected. Like we have strong value system, and respect is part of one of our 7 great teachings we have in the 7 grandfather teachings. But the 7 grandfather teachings is also a way to put you into spirit, because when you use those morals, when you use those values, you're able to put yourself in a vibration, a frequency where you're in spirit. And then that medicine wheel is a compass. It's telling you how to move, because the earth is telling you how to move. When we wake up in the morning, the first thing that we see is the sun rising in the east.
Right there.
So in the medicine wheel, we literally have the east as where the spirit is. We put the spirit in the medicine wheel in the east because it always rises in the east. So the sun, depending on where you are in the position of the world, the sun may go south of you, which is what it does to us, or it could go north. So where we're from here in Ontario, we would go south. So in order for us to harmonize ourselves with the environment, we just follow the medicine wheel in the direction that the sun is in the environment you're in.
Can you show us on the mural?
Yeah.
No problem. Very close.
That means wolf clan in Anishinaabe. Our language.
I had that down.
Nice. So here, this is the wolf. It's a humongous wolf, and you can only really see it. Yeah. So you can see it. That's the eyes right there.
Yeah.
This is the nose, the top of the snout, the nose right here. They'll be smelling a butterfly. So when I write, when I do all my like graffiti or my murals, I always put a butterfly in there. I do a style of I do a style of dancing in the powwow called grass dancing, and the grass dancing was invented a long time ago from an Anishinaabe boy, and his name was Rocky Boy, and he was a crippled child. And to make a very long story short, he went through this amazing ceremony, and when he was at a powwow, he he asked his father if he could dance. His father arranged it, did this amazing ceremony for him, and I really should tell the entire story, but it's fairly long. But the reason why I put that butterfly is because when Rocky Boy first took his first steps, a butterfly landed on his head and stayed there the entire time while he did the grass dance for probably
Wow, that's a great story.
It's a real story.
Great.
I always try to put that in there because that's what I represent. I represent the Rocky Boy.
Now the 4 colors are like a sound vibration.
4 colors is the white, black, red, and yellow. So if you were to imagine a wheel, and if it was divided in pies into 4 pies equal, there'd be white nation at the top, yellow nation in the east, red nation in the south, black nation in the west. Now when you look at it from a cultural perspective, there are different cultures. There's brown nations. There's other yellow nations. Like there's so many. Those nations have their own color now. But if you trace back their ancestral culture, they came from those 4 original colors. When you mix red and black, you get brown. When you mix yellow and white, you'll get brown. There's so many different cultures. When you mix them, you will get a color change. But our ancestral backgrounds were all native. The white nation had native ancestry. It's part of our culture. Yeah. It's just, when I look at the history of the world, I see that colonizing happens for so long around the world except here. And it was the last nation to really get colonized. So we still have a lot of our indigenous connection, which everyone else shared around the world. But we just have it more intact because we weren't colonized for as long. So because there's still traces of it. If you look at the nation's elements, each of our cultures show significant leaps in that one element. So for example, the yellow nation is the air nation. That's where spirit starts. in that direction. The reason why it's the air nation, the wind nation, is because if you look at all of the cultural jumps that they have, the Yellow Nation holds over any other nation, you can see it in their cultural practices. Their creation story is about a dragon coming from the sky, or a Hindu god coming from the sky, or another god coming out of the clouds. They also have a lot of amazing things like Qigong, yoga, the list goes on, man. Everything dealing with air and breathing exercising. The Yellow Nation is so advanced in the air element, and if you ever go to China, if you ever go to like any of those places like Japan, Korea, you'll notice that the air there is super polluted. And that's what's wrong with the human circle right now. Is each of us are abusing our element. So if you look at the Red Nation, we're here for the earth. My family could take you out here. We can show you all the medicine that you might think is just roots and terrible weeds that you don't like. I can show you how to use those as teas and create medicine for you that'll actually help your DNA get stronger to this environment. Because in order for you to survive here, you need to eat the earth, the food that's from the earth here. And that's gonna strengthen you, strengthen your immune system, strengthen your grounding, help you get more connected, interconnected to not only yourself, but to like the things around you, that awareness, that consciousness, and also allow you to just be, I don't want to say just connected. There's a stronger word than that I'm trying to find. But when you're finding, that
when you're in tune.
Pardon me.
When you're in tune.
Yes. Yeah. Like your frequency is just
harmony.
And harmony. Yeah. Good. That's a good one too. Yeah. So like the Red Nation, we're here for the teachings of the earth. So that's why I know about nature, how it works, and the direction it works.
And that's your role, is to guide us in this respect.
And share. It's just about sharing. Because I need to learn from the Yellow Nation too. They need to teach me how to breathe properly. They need to teach me how to be able to use the air elements in a way where my culture doesn't have those teachings. The Black Nation is responsible for the water element. The perfect, strongest structural body you can get is from the Black Nation. If you look at the structure, it's because we're 90% water. And so their natural physiology, their body,
50% bone and muscle.
But their body is strengthened by the water, and you can tell. You can tell they have their athleticism stronger than any other nation, in a consistent basis in the body. Not only that, if you go to Africa and you look at like the biggest river Nile goes through Africa. Also, all the pyramids, when they were made above bodies of water. The Black Nation had so many advances in healing techniques with water. And you can see it in the hieroglyphics. You look at the pyramids, you go to Egypt, there's no such thing as the Middle East, by the way. It's all Africa. Like the colonized world that we have, the view of how they're sharing it right now to us, it's just to separate us, to make us believe about this nationality thing that we're trying to buy us into. My nationality is that I am a human being. That's my nationality. Like, I am Red Nation, I know that, because I have to explain it to other people. But if you were to ask me in my language, and we were having a conversation, and you asked me, who am I? I would tell you I'm Anishinaabe. And that means I am a person of the land. I'm a human. That's all it means. There's nothing else that comes with that.
Well, I look at the maps, and like, you don't draw the border with the United States. Like the 49th parallel means nothing in this scheme of things.
No, not at all.
You guys, these lakes are your home.
The Anishinaabe roamed all the way from, there's a lot of misconceptions about how our cities were. Like, there's a lot of people that don't understand that we had like an intricate pathway system, traveling system, portage system, where we had trails that were here for tens of thousands of years before they all got broken down by the railroad, and the railroad used a lot of those trails. A lot of the cities that we had were just taken over. Ottawa is a great example. That was a city that occupied by 2 million natives at one time. And then when the natives came, the colonizers came with the new groups of armies, those people slowly stopped using that place as the meeting spot.
Wasn't that a prophecy that you guys were to start, knew in advance? The elders knew, someone knew, that we needed to start moving west, away from the Ottawa Valley.
Yes.
Is that a part of it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a part of it.
Because I was almost seeing that in this, what I consider this spirit line running through through the moose and the wolves, the beaver, the bear. I was looking for a totem for protection.
See, a totem is more for like Haida natives.
Right.
So the West Coast natives do totem poles.
Right.
I'm not a totem native. I'm a wigwam native. So we do everything in circles, and our homes are made out of circles. Like the sky dome, that's a wigwam. You know, so it's just like a circle. It's actually the strongest form you can create in a shape. It's this circle. It's probably one of, like in terms of like when you're
Geometric.
Geometric, yeah. It's like really powerful.
In 3 dimensions, the most powerful would be a
Spirits
helix.
or helix.
Yeah, because if you suppress it, it will retain that energy, and the resilience will rebound again. So, for example, Matthew, who was putting in all the work and got the foundation together, and then has a bad day, while other people may be crushed by such an experience, if they have confidence in themselves, then they store that energy on a bad day, and they come back 2 weeks later and break their own will again. I've seen it happen. But listen, tell me some more. What's going on here? I didn't see the bull, so I thought the bull Russians would suffice.
We have some of them here, but this is actually the teachings of the Six Nations. So, actually, I'll start you at the very beginning, January to the end of January. So it's this is like the old traditional lunar calendar that we would follow. And so a lot of times, a lot of our teachings, a lot of our ways of us like looking and seeing like what's behind the painting is through just simple geometric shapes. Like it's all through sacred geometry. So this is the 13 grandmother clan system, and this right here is the medicine. No, sorry. Yeah, this is the 7 grandfather teachings. I thought I missed a color. I was like, oh no. But yeah, so this is the 7 grandfather teachings on this side. So in my culture, everything is based on what's the duality of life, the polarity of life. So there's a masculinity and femininity to every single life. But it starts with women first. All of us were females before we became a male. At the very end, there's a chromosome change that just happens, and you become a male all of a sudden. But before that happens, your egg, you're female. We all are. So the start of life is based on that setting. So this right here represents the grandmother of the 13 grandmother clan, and inside of her is Mother Earth. So it's showing that the connection of that the moon and the earth share the role and responsibility that they have with each other. So that's the connection of Mother Earth. That's my rocky boy.
Yeah, and you gotta do both ends. So it's bookends.
Yes, but it's also part of the Six Nations treaty. So there's out of the Six Nations, there's the insect nation. So that represents the butterflies. They're part of that. But before I get into the Six Nations, these two panels, this one represents the female, this one represents the male. The masculinity and femininity divided perfectly. So they're sharing basically like the same space, but they are different. You know what I mean?
I got it. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's the duality,
the
polarity, north and south. So the 7 grandfather teachings are respect, wisdom, love, humility, truth, courage, and honesty. So it's kind of hard to see the last one because of the peach color. It's like just like you can see
I see it
there a little bit. But yeah, that's the 7 grandfather teachings.
I like that it's subtle.
So this right here represents the grandfather's clan. So I haven't finished the sun yet, but this is going to be a representation of the sun, and it's coming down. Same thing again. Each time you see any of my characters, they have 2 feathers, masculinity and femininity. It represents like the polarity of life. Everything, all life has it. So again, if we're looking at like symbology, we're talking about the 7 red lines, the spirit lines. Those are connection of the 7 grandfather teachings, showing you that is the grandfather. These are the ways that we share it, and then up here is going to show the connection of the sun, and it's going to be coming out of the feathers like a flower. Like those feathers are like plants. So this represents also a smudge bowl, and one of the things that
A smudge bowl.
yeah, that's what the grandfather.
The grandfather.
Yes. So it represents the grandfather, but like only because in like human culture we give it a sex, but it doesn't have a sex. But it just represents the grandfather nation. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it's not a male, but it's representative. That's why it has the two feathers. It's showing that it's both.
Right. Okay. I'm with you now.
And so this is gonna, when this
And
is
these
done,
are
this is the 7 grandfather teachings. So it's wisdom, humility, respect, honesty, courage, truth, and love. Those are the 7 grandfather teachings. Here, it starts where the peace treaty started. So the peace treaty started when, after the grandmother and the grandfather came together, and mother and father decided that we were going to create this life that's here, this life force that's here. Then the peace treaty had to happen. So creation, the creator, the great mystery, which represents the sun, we call it Gitchi Manitou, which means the great mystery. Gitchi Manitou and his sister asked the animals if they'd be willing to allow us to live here, the human nation. And so they agreed. They agreed. Yeah. So they agreed. So this represents the 6 nations.
Humility.
It does represent humility on their part, not on ours. On their part. But the 6 nations are the bird nation, which is representing the balloons here, and then the animal nation is the bear, the beaver, and the moose. So there's a reason why I put these 3 animals. The bear nation is a representation of all 6 nations. It's the only animal that eats everything. It eats humans, plants, birds, insects, fish.
I didn't know that.
And it eats animals, other animals. So it's the only one that can communicate to every single one of us. It can speak to us. So in the Anishinaabe culture, the bear is looked at, it's called Makwa Dorum. That's the medicine plant. They're like super spiritual.
That's their responsibility.
Animals. Yeah, like when you see a bear walks inwards like this, it's like it'll lift up every single stone and like never leave a stone unturned. And that's because like they're the true like tenants of the forest. They're going through and they're just kind of like they're constantly reflecting and they're constantly connected to our past. Such a powerful animal. So above the medicine nation is the medicine that I feel that we all need, and that's the medicine wheel. So this is a representation of that. That outside ring is the yellow nation. The second one is the red nation. The black nation in the center is the white nation.
Have you decided anything for the top yet?
Yes, it's going to be another medicine wheel, but distorted and more like, how do I say, like abstract art.
For you?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be based on some of the similar shapes that we're doing here. But
another geometry.
Just on a different angle. It's going to come in and cut. It's going to have a cool just cut line, but it's actually going to be an entire like circle, like this, a ring of circles again. But different colors, just to like show like I want to show the difference, subtle changes, but like I want it to be consistent with the panels. So it's going to have a different change. You notice each panel is colored different than the next. So this right here is the representation of how, if you'll notice, there's the sun, and it's connected to the earth, and it's showing you the sun itself in the center, and it's the yellow nation right around it. So this is telling you right now you're on the red nation. This is Turtle Island. This is where the red nation is from. That's why the red is centered to the middle of it, and then around it is the yellow nation. And that's because like everything starts in spirit. So the yellow nation represents spirit, represents the air element, and in the human element, we also have 4 natures. So we have our spirit, we have emotions, we have a body, we have a mind. So when you learn how to develop those 4 natures, you can actually start to begin to understand what it means to be a real human.
But to be a human and to be a healthy human, it requires a real, in Gestalt psychology, which reminds me a lot of your medicine wheel, by the way. We can talk about that another time. We're going to. I hope we'll get together again. But it's to a confluence merges what are formerly separate as a whole to strengthen the whole. So there's always the elements for the sake of analysis, but in reality there must be an understanding that it's all one. Would that help? Would that work? I mean, would that be in sync with
It's similar.
Okay.
It's similar. Like
That's Western.
with the medicine wheel, it's
philosophy.
really showing you the blueprint of how everything is working and the order it happens.
Right.
So if you want to know what direction it goes,
Yeah,
you understand.
yeah.
So it's, for example, for yourself, you want to do internal work on yourself. You have to move the opposite way that the earth is working. Because in the physical world, everything is going to be going into the direction of the physical world. But if you're going inside internally, you have to go into the
other
spiritual
direction.
side.
Yeah.
So like now you have to go use the wheel the opposite direction.
Wow, and then the breath becomes really important again.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It always starts in spirit.
Yeah.
So in order for you to like find that connection, all you have to do is exercise your values. When you don't listen to your value system, your body gives you negative emotions because you have input. You get your body is constantly evaluating itself. So you start off with strong morals. We all do. We're born with them. However, when we use our mind, that's when we can switch it off or switch it on. As an Anishinaabe person, I can't switch it off because I'm spiritual. I just was raised this way. So I cannot neglect or ignore my principles, my values, my morals.
In Western philosophy, we call that dysfunction bad faith. It's when you're living against your own fate, in a sense. You know, you're not living according to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we try to like really make sure that everything that we're doing in terms of how we create like energy for ourselves is based on the principles of our natures, of how they develop and how they work with each other. So in order for us to be fully at our greatest potential, we would need to be going in a constant, it's called circular thinking. And we need to go into this constant motion of that circular way. And what ends up happening is every time you complete a circle, your values and your morals get stronger, meaning your spirituality gets stronger.
This, back to our helix, is a model that I've used with athletes to build that progression so that it is wider. You come around to the same position, but to encompassing more and more. Each rotation, which just empowers, like you can go, anything becomes possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything. I don't want to hold you up because I know you're still working, but could you just quickly introduce us to the rest of the team?
Yes, I just want to finish the story real quick. Sorry, just for you guys to get it.
Yeah.
So right here in the center of the black, you got time?
Yep.
So the center of the black right here is the medicine wheel again, based off of the geometry. 4 arms coming out of the sun, that's coming out of the water. And the reason why it's coming out of the water is it's showing you that connection of the polarity. So everything works also in nature with each other. So the fire elements and the earth elements work really well together. Right. The water elements and the air elements work really well together.
Oh, but the others are a little at.
Well, if you think about how we breathe, if you think about like all the jet streams that are above us, how like rain and clouds are developed, what areas of bodies of water where
like
that
a
area
river
comes
in the
from.
Sky, isn't it?
But like the air takes up all that. It takes up all the moisture. Like without air, we wouldn't have any of this. We wouldn't be breathing. You know what I'm saying?
We wouldn't be having this conversation.
But like there's always that 2 elements that work really well together. A lot of people think it's air and fire would go really well, and water and earth would go really well. But it's the opposite.
You gotta be thinking the other way here. You gotta go the other way.
So this is showing you basically just like it's constantly showing you patterns in different shapes, so that it's in the effort that it'll resonate with you. You know what I mean? Like you'll take away something from this, and you'll have some sort of deep impact inside you.
That's what I wanted to tell our audience, because I want our residents to walk by here as I do every day, every morning, 4 times with this guy, and engage with it, to get involved, like I have been. I was watching you do it. Remember the first day, I thought you were just a part of the crew here to whitewash the graffiti, and you didn't even tell me. You sandbagged me, and you said, well, wait, there's more to come. And I thought, I wonder what he meant by that. And now I see this. And this will be here for a while.
At least 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I read the contract.
Nice.
And it's our job to maintain it.
Well,
That's why
it's also my job to make sure that nothing can happen to it. So like after that, they're encouraging us to find people that want to seek mentorship. So Sadie's somebody that's really showed interest in creating murals.
How
She's
did
an
you
artist.
find each other?
We're friends.
Oh,
Yeah, I've known each other for 7 years. 6 or 7 years.
how did you meet?
I was serving coffees and he needed a coffee.
That's
And then,
it.
yeah, we found out that we had mutual interests through arts and dance and music and, and built that way.
And you still together.
Yeah, no, friends. I build with, I approach friendship more like a family. So, like I
That's
really.
what the clans are,
it's long
right?
term.
All the clans are extended families.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Absolutely. And so she's here for the mentorship and just learning the process of how to create a mural. Alex is my mentor. So I've learned how to write graffiti.
How to dance for letters out?
No, that was taught to me from my friend Fable from the Bronx. But Alex gave me the application of putting it to a lot of the guys in New York, they taught me a mentality, but they never actually taught me the physical how to do it. You know what I'm saying? So when I was living in Toronto, I moved here when I was 17, and Alex was one of the first writers that I met out here. And I was a b-boy, and my crew was killing it in the b-boy scene.
Killed it.
His crew was killing it in the writing scene.
I was going to say, the songwriting is where the money is.
No, like a graffiti, like writers, like graffiti
all right.
writers. So his crew and my crew had the same approach to how we were battling everybody. It was us versus everyone.
Everybody.
And we battled everybody. So we just formed like an ultimate crew together.
And Sadie is a warrior princess in this crew.
Yes, absolutely.
No
absolutely.
princess, definitely a warrior.
Warrior.
Yeah.
So are you both Toronto natives as well?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born in Windsor, but I grew up there.
Oh, I'm
since
sorry.
Since I was 10, though. So does that count?
Well, we're all born at age 10, really. We're born premature.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're helpless. Like these animals, they get up the next day and they run around. It takes us a while. We have to be looked after because our heads outgrew our mother's pelvises, so we wouldn't fit. So we're born, about 10 years premature. We should just come in and test it.
That's a good answer.
I'm going to get back to work, guys.
But just to finish off about Alex. So Alex brought me on board into Street Art Toronto 3 years ago. And I mentored under him for the past 2 years. So this year, I graduated from the mentorship and I was given a lot of opportunities to create my own walls. So this year, this is my second wall that I've done. And I really wanted an opportunity to include my mentor in the wall and show that full circle of how I started with him on his walls. And this year, we're doing a wall that I've created, but he's also he's heavily responsible for it too. And to be really straightforward about this wall, I created a lot of the artwork in sketchbooks and stuff like that, and I showed it to him. I seek mentorship, I've always seek from him, and I asked him about what kind of colors should I use, and he really basically helped me color everything, helped me matured my color palette.
I want our community, City Place residents, to be a part of this because this is a part of our community and now you are, and our relationship becomes a part of that. And the way in which I'd like to project it onto the future is I'm writing a grant as soon as possible, as soon as Street Art starts showing us the grant scheme again. I'd like to include you guys because we already have a relationship. So there's lots to be painted around here. There's lots to be done, and I'd like you to be a part of that. So I'd like to keep this going, so that again, it sort of seems to be a part of the spirit that you've created. I hope, because you're bringing some real elegance and character, and it's requesting. It sort of invites engagement, right? And I don't want people to think that this is real art, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not like. Well, thank you. We'll see you because you're not coming away until you're finished, right?
Yeah, and I'll be coming back lots too after when it's done, because part of the contract is that I'm going to be doing a lot of community. They're calling it consultation, but it's going to be more just engagement. I'm going to be kind of creating different content. I'm going to be doing a video on YouTube, I'm going to be coming here and actually doing like live tours with like the school and the different students in different groups. And there is going to be an opportunity for, and I would love to actually communicate more with you. I have your card. So
Dude, I was going to say that was going to be our last thing. Was how are we going to get in touch with you? But you
I'm going to email you because one of my roles is that I need to seek out people like you who are leading the community so that I can communicate with you that effectively communicate into your community.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, I don't have a connection here, and I'd like to ask if you could be that bridge.
I am.
And
in Western philosophy, organizational leadership terms, we call that boundary spanning.
Nice. Yes. I would love to keep on this conversation.
Absolutely,
too.
man. We feel blessed that we got to meet you guys. Really.
Thanks.